At Collin County Middle School district bargaining sessions have pushed to the edge of a strike here in Eugene.
At about 1:30 this morning, officials of the Coos Bay Teachers Union and Coos Bay School Board were forced to admit they were at stalemate. There was no give, no take, and no compromise left in their respective contract proposals. State mediator Bruce Zagar reluctantly informed gathered media that Coos Bay teachers would walk off the job at the beginning of Tuesday's classes.
Well, it seems that the association is unwilling to accept the fact that the school board has several concerns as a package, and just simply cannot accept the fact that the board has more than one or two items that it wishes to see changed in that contract.
Teachers hit the picket lines at around 7 this morning, leaving 4,500 students and Coos Bay's 9 district schools without classroom instructors for at least 1 week. Teachers on the line say they regret the walkout, but insist it's time to stand up to the district board on issues of insurance, early retirement, and general professional dignity.
I don't think anyone wanted it to come to this. A strike is not fun. It's not, there's no real winner in this situation. It's, that's just the way the collective bargaining system works.
And now we're going to hold fast to keep a good contract. It's not for those of us that are getting up near the retirement age. It's to attract quality educators to our district later on and to keep the ones we have.
No additional bargaining sessions have been scheduled between the two sides in Coos Bay, and early indications are that the Coos Bay School Board may try to bring in replacement instructors starting next Monday. No one on either side is sure what will happen if substitutes attempt to cross the picket line. Ken Embury, Eyewitness News.
While teachers were organizing their picket lines in Coos Bay School District and union negotiators were reaching a
Dancer along with David Walker, and thank you for joining us tonight. It's no longer a threat in Coos Bay, but instead it's a reality. Coos Bay teachers made the move many hoped they'd never have to make. Teachers walked off the job and are now beating the pavement for their cause.
Okay, you guys got your picket signs ready? We're on strike.
Hours later, picket signs blocked passage to all 9 schools in the district. After 16 months of negotiations, it's official. Coos Bay teachers are on strike. The schools are closed. Protesters believe in what they're doing and say they'll fight until the bitter end.
It really is very scary and hurts my feelings a great amount. I certainly never expected this when I signed on with School District 9 in 1959.
Been here many, many years. I started in this district back in 1954. This is sad, the saddest thing that's ever happened to me. Things are not going right because we're not working together. We are working apart, it seems.
The decision to strike came early this morning when it became apparent after 7 hours of passing proposals back and forth, the two sides were getting nowhere. Formally, 8 issues remain in contention. Negotiators for both sides are ready to admit the real factor blocking settlement is a power struggle.
This board is out to establish itself and to take over the responsibilities that have traditionally in this district been reserved for teachers. They are trying to not only be the policymakers of this district, which they should be as board, but now they're trying to get right into the classroom and try to teach kids.
You know, it ultimately boils down to effective cost containment while maintaining the basic level of benefits for the employees. It boils down to who runs this school district, the elected school board or the union that's not elected.
The board has made its final offer. Union leadership says it's willing to sit down and talk. In the meantime, 4,300 Coos Bay students and the community are being held hostage to a strike. Teachers and the school board are locked into a stalemate with no clear way out. Both sides are hoping this strike will pressure the other team into making concessions. Future meetings are pending. We probably won't see any action until this weekend. Reporting for Northwest News, I'm Rick Dancer.
Both teachers and the school board enter a cooling-off period for the next couple of days. Both sides are so far apart it may take some time or community pressure to get negotiations rolling again. While teachers march the picket lines, the board is busy hiring replacement help to get students back in school sometime next week. Superintendent Giles Parker says 200 applications have been filed.
The plan right now, and it's a tentative plan, and I emphasize tentative because our base position, I think, is that we will reopen the schools when we can guarantee a safe and orderly educational environment. Our plan right now is to remain closed for the rest of the week, of course, unless the strike is ended, but assuming that it isn't, and then have an in-service day for the replacement teachers on Monday and Tuesday, and open schools on Wednesday, a week from tomorrow.
Should the strike last more than 8 days, makeup time could end up cutting into summer vacations. Students will be asked to come back a week from tomorrow. Parker says it's up to each parent to decide whether or not their child will cross the line. No one can legally advise a parent to keep kids home. Union leader Bruce Smith says he doesn't expect problems, but parents will be responsible for anything that happens to their children crossing the lines.
Our attempt to avert a teacher strike. Sylvia Stenson was there, and she has our story tonight.
There was little for Coos Bay youngsters to do today but run and play. At 1:30 this morning, the district's 213 teachers reached an impasse in contract negotiations with the district.
13 years with the district. And they wanted, take many things away, and their idea of compromise is to give half back.
And so at 7 o'clock this morning, teachers hit the picket line.
How long are you prepared to stay out on strike?
As long as it takes.
While Coos Bay classrooms sit empty, teachers call their struggle with the school district a power play and not a matter of money. The district disagrees.
There are really 7 issues that we think are still on the table and that we're really discussing, maybe 8. 6 of those are directly related to money.
At issue are such matters as who is to be the final judge over how a child is graded, a change even some parents joining today's picket line find disturbing.
If my child were to get an A or a B in a class, I would not want the school board or any administrator to be able to unilaterally change that grade without consulting the teacher.
If a student or a parent were to sue for a grade problem, it would be the school board they would sue, not the teacher.
And so, as disagreements continue, Superintendent Parker describes the distance separating the district and its teachers in contract negotiations as a very large one.
Since no new negotiations are scheduled, nobody's optimistic about an early settlement here in Coos Bay. So for the moment, it appears Coos Bay youngsters will be out of school until next Wednesday, when the district plans to hire about 150 substitute teachers to resume classroom duties. In Coos Bay, Sylvia Stinson, the 10 o'clock news.
In Eugene, meanwhile, negotiations.
A petition has been filed claiming the strike is unlawful. The Coos Bay School District filed a petition with the State Employment Relations Board declaring the 3-day-old strike by the teachers is unlawful. Now, the petition is in response to an unfair labor practice complaint the union filed against the district Tuesday. The union says the district committed an unfair labor practice when it gave teachers copies of the last offer the board made at the end of Sunday's mediation session. Superintendent Giles Parker says that Oregon law specifically bars teachers or any other public employees group from striking when an unfair labor charge is filed. Now, at this time, neither side is willing to budge, but there is talk that there might be some negotiations.
Petition asking the State Employment Relations Board to declare the strike illegal. Superintendent Giles Parker says it's against the law to strike while there's an unfair labor charge on file. The union filed a complaint against the district on Tuesday, but Coos Bay teachers say they don't believe there is such a law.
The real issue here is the state law, the Collective Bargaining Act. We have filed the petition to declare the strike unlawful. The state law is very clear that one of the conditions to running a lawful strike, starting one or continuing one, is that there not be any union-filed unfair labor practice charges arising out of the negotiations.
This is a scare tactic, and they're charged with a lawful strike. It's not going to stop the resolve of our members. We're still going to maintain our legal picket lines, and the only way that, again, if this issue is going to be resolved
is for the board to return to the bargaining table with a proposal that is consistent with current language and the needs of teachers and students in this district.
The complaint filed by the teachers union alleges that the district sent to teachers a proposed contract that was different from its final offer to union negotiators. Many people don't know.
Most of you do not know what the Eugene and Coos Bay teachers are striking over. The truth is, even the reporters covering the strike don't really know for sure. We say the issues are things like salary and insurance because that is what we are told by representatives of labor and management. But like you, we don't know for sure because the negotiations are secret by law. The secrecy, we are told, is to avoid what they call fishbowl bargaining, where both sides grandstand to the public and little bargaining gets accomplished. Now, if you have been following the Eugene teachers' strike, you know this is empty rhetoric. It is apparent both sides have been talking past one another for months, although they have held these sessions in secret where negotiators are supposed to be able to get the best job done. Ironically, neither labor nor management are enthusiastic about ending secret negotiations. School boards are not anxious to be second-guessed by taxpayers, and the only control that unions have over their members is to be the sole source of information about what is being discussed in the progress of negotiations. Ask any Eugene teacher to explain what they are striking over, and they will explain with some embarrassment that they really don't know the details. Don't be angry with them. The teachers are as much a victim of this system as the rest of us. Yet another teacher's strike raises the question of whether Oregon's system of public employee collective bargaining, based on the same industrial model as General Motors or Chrysler labor relations, serves the public interest. Is a blue-collar industrial labor relations model an adequate framework to solve the problems of educating children? Teachers and school boards are not responsible for this system of bargaining. The legislature is, and it is probably time for you to let your legislators know whether you feel the present system is working adequately. I'm Russell Sadler, Northwest News.
Negotiator Bruce Zager says Smith is wrong. In fact, he says the board has hired all its substitutes.
Yes, if they conclude, the three board members there conclude that there is a violation of law, then yes, they would issue an order declaring the strike unlawful. And whereupon then the union, if it chose to continue that strike, would be subject to civil liability for damages.
Hearings officer at the ERB, Roy Edwards, says he has not officially received the board's petition. Once it has been filed, it will take about 2 or 3 weeks to process. In the meantime, Smith says the teachers will continue to picket.
Well, if you live in the city
town, the first stop was Western Bank, the workplace of 2 Coos Bay School Board members. Union members withdrew their strike funds, $8,000 worth, and they say there's more to be transferred. The next stop, the Coos Bay World newspaper. Union President Jim Rainey presented publisher Jerry Barron with a guest editorial. Rainey says there have been 2 editorials in the paper blasting teachers. He wants equal time. In other strike-related news, a mediation session has still not been scheduled at this time between the board and teachers. However, a local minister offered to be the facilitator in bringing the 2 sides together. Letters were sent to both the board and union leadership. The union has accepted. Superintendent Giles Parker says he received too many phone calls from the media before he and the board got a chance to look over the letter. Parker says he appreciates what the minister is trying to do, but under the circumstances with the media publication, the board will decline. Parker says they'll get back together when the mediator calls the meeting.
The picket line. Today, the Coos Bay School District started bringing in substitute teachers in hopes of reopening classes later this week. Well, that angered teachers on the picket lines. There were shouting matches as picketers blocked buses bringing in the replacement teachers. The picketers then formed a jeering welcoming committee. There were a few serious problems, although this woman's camera was taken away from her, and it was thrown to the ground by a former school administrator who was one of the substitutes. Inside, the new teachers were briefed by district officials. Classroom assignments were handed out, and the substitutes were taken on a tour. The district hopes to resume classes by midweek.
And the situation's no better in Eugene, where 14 hours...
Tensions grow in Coos Bay as replacement teachers cross the picket lines of striking school teachers, and the Eugene teacher strike enters its 6th day. Today when striking teachers refused to allow substitute trainees to get off a bus at Charleston Elementary School. The Coos Bay School District scheduled today and tomorrow as in-service days to prepare 186 newly hired teachers to take over classroom duties on Wednesday. And tempers flared today on the picket lines. Coos Bay students are scheduled to return to class Wednesday. No further negotiations between teachers and the school district have been announced. No new negotiations.
The teachers are picketing their own buildings. They're pretty much spread out by building. There are some Uniserv people from around the state and some longshoremen, we understand, down harassing people at the motels, but that's unconfirmed. But I had a couple calls regarding that.
In other news, and 7.8% in the second year. In Eugene, Susan Castillo, Northwest News.
Because it's not only my pocketbook, it's the pocketbook of the entire community.
Before the allowance was handed out, union spokesman Bruce Smith gave teachers an update on where the negotiations stand between the school board and the union. 6 issues ranging from insurance benefits to early retirement are still what's keeping the two sides from settling. Teachers will continue to receive a stipend as long as they remain on strike. The amount will increase to $125 if the strike continues next week. If they go into a third week of walkouts, the allowance will increase another $25. Bruce Smith says he doesn't expect another mediation session to take place until the next 3 days.
Teachers. For the second day in a row, substitutes were taken by bus to schools for another day of training. Striking teachers were waiting at the schools, and this is what happened this morning. All classes except kindergarten will reopen tomorrow. About 4,000 students are expected to attend, but some of the striking teachers say things will not run smoothly. Also, some parents say they'll keep their kids home.
Are not looking forward to coming to school with substitute scabs in their regular teachers' places. They are, I've been told at least by some students, that they intend to make their feelings known clearly.
Are you going to be sending your children back to school?
No, I'm not.
And why is that?
Because this is a strike, and my children will not walk through a picket line. And I don't think that the teachers that they're bringing in, I don't think they've had enough time to check out their qualifications. To me, it would be like taking someone off the street and having them in a classroom trying to teach.
Now, meantime, in Eugene,
Voters of the district settled the contract dispute. The board voted to have its attorney find out if such a step would be legal. Teacher Union President Jim Rainey says the offer comes as a complete surprise. He said he'll turn it over to the Teachers Negotiator Committee. Meanwhile, the replacement teachers have refused to cross their picket lines. However, the Coos Bay School District says very few replacements hired to reopen classes tomorrow have dropped out. And the district adds claims that strikers have been threatening and harassing the replacements. When schools open tomorrow, the striking teachers say they will give each of the 4,300 students in the district an apple to show they care. The teachers union will also be sending parents into the schools to see whether the replacements are actually...
Along with David Walker, and thank you for joining us tonight. 12 hours before students go back to the classroom, the union and the board are making a last-ditch effort to settle this strike. According to board negotiator Bruce Zager, a mediation session has been scheduled for 7 o'clock tonight. State mediator Daryl Murray nor the union will comment on the session. Early today, the board met to review videos of yesterday's strike activity and take care of some business. This is the first open session in about 3 weeks. The board's latest attempt at ending the strike is to put the issue before voters.
Very, very happy to submit our last proposal that's on the table, their last proposal, and in fact give the voters the opportunity to make the decision and make that binding on us.
If voters favored either position, the proposals would be used as an indication of where the community opinion lies. It would not automatically settle the dispute, Board attorneys will look into the legality of such a move and report back to the board tomorrow. In other board-related news, a request by parents and the union to meet in public forum Thursday night was denied by the board. Henke read her statement to sponsors.
It can only serve to polarize an already difficult situation, which must be decided in the format the law provides at the bargaining table with the help of the state mediator.
While the contract of some 213 teachers remains unsettled, 112 custodians, teachers' aides, and secretaries have a new contract, which includes a 2.9% pay increase. This comes after last year's shakeup of the classified employees contract, where significant rollbacks were taken. It may seem like a strange time to be talking about asking voters for more money to operate the schools, but the board today the board is looking at a budget for the next year, and it's just over $18 million.
They'll be able to pay at least part of their bills while they remain on the picket line. Yesterday, the Assistant Executive Director of the Oregon Education Association was here from Portland, accompanied by tight security while delivering more than $22,000 to union headquarters. Members who have remained active and loyal to the teachers' strike lined up to receive a $100 stipend. Teachers have officially been on strike for 6 days now, but most of the picketers aren't so much concerned with their current financial state as they are with getting a contract settlement.
This strike is, of course, hurting me financially, but more importantly, it's hurting my career. It's hurting education in Coos Bay. It's hurting kids. I've dedicated over 20 years of my life to making education better in Coos Bay. And to be treated like this by the people that I work for is probably the most hurtful thing of all.
Well, I would say that money is not really important to me right now. I don't care. I want a settlement really badly.
For me, the $100 a week is no problem. What really makes me angry and upsets my pocketbook is the $30,000 a day that's leaving the Coos Bay area with people taking my job. And that's what upsets my pocketbook, because it's not only my pocketbook, it's the pocketbook of the entire community.
Before the allowance was handed out, union spokesman Bruce Smith gave teachers an update on where the negotiations stand between the school board and the union. 6 issues ranging from insurance benefits to early retirement remain the obstacles keeping the two sides from settling. Teachers will continue to receive a stipend as long as they continue to strike. The amount will increase to $125 if they're still on the picket lines next week. If the strike should continue into a third week, the allowance will increase another $25.
Violations of property. Board member Everett Curry braved the picket lines. For the most part, he says teachers are fairly calm. He credits much of the violence to other union groups. Just how many teachers crossed picket lines for a second day after yesterday's scare? According to district figures, about 8 substitutes were scared off. However, 176 replacements are ready to open doors tomorrow. Teachers on the line report seeing fewer teachers crossing today. However, figures were not available to back that up.
Well, schools will be opening tomorrow morning at their usual time, and buses will be running on their normal schedules. Students are required by Oregon law to attend classes, although the school board and truancy officials agree it's up to students and their parents to decide what's best for them.
In other news, it could end up costing, along with David Walker, and thank you for joining us tonight. Picket lines were fairly calm today as substitute teachers met students for the first official day of school since the strike began 7 days ago. When school buses loaded with replacement teachers arrived at Marshfield High School shortly before 8 o'clock this morning, frustrated pickets were waiting at the gates. There was no hitting or shoving today, just teachers pleading for their jobs.
Yeah, for her. She wants people over. She wants.
Administrators quickly escorted subs to classrooms while nervous students watched from windows above. Overall, the transition at the high school was uneventful. However, students are confused listening to one teacher while watching the familiar instructors parading past the classroom windows.
It's scary, you know, your teachers you know and go to school with, you know, are acting this way, and it's really strange, it's really different. You know, they're supposed to be setting an example, and they're not doing a good job of that.
Everybody was thinking that the teachers would be pouring blood on the cars and
they all
harassing us.
We all waved at them, and they waved back, and it was like they're real friendly.
Just down the block at Blossom Gulch Elementary School, many parents delivered students to avoid altercations between the buses and the pickets. Strikers were calm as they watched their pupils arrive for class.
Hi, Josh! Hey, Josh! Work on that now!
Teachers knew today would be the toughest day. Some broke under the pressure but are hanging on for their cause.
I just feel sick. I feel real bad that somebody's in there doing what I want to be doing. You know, we have to fight for what we believe in, too, just like everyone else does. You know, we're human, too. I think a lot of people forget that, but we are.
While teachers continue to walk the picket line, district officials say 70% of their students are back in the classroom. Union leadership is disagreeing with those figures, but has no head count of its own. Now that the kids are back in school, the strike is going to get even tougher. It'll be hard for teachers to stay out of the classroom. At the same time, it's going to be tough for the board to keep up its appearance that school is almost back to normal. Reporting for Northwest News, I'm Rick Dancer.
There's no quick end in sight for the strike of Coos Bay teachers. Both sides have final offers on the table, and neither one appears to want to budge. State mediator Daryl Murray says this is the closest the two groups have ever been. Last night's mediation session was called as a last-ditch effort to settle the strike before students went back to school. But it didn't work. Teachers and the board made concessions. They were so close to an agreement, both sides thought it over. Even state mediator Daryl Murray thought it was over. He says both sides were at the altar, but no one would say, "I do." What's blocking an agreement? The same issues we've heard so much about the last few months. According to the board, early retirement is the final issue to resolve. Union negotiator Bruce Smith adds insurance to that list. Superintendent Giles Parker expected the union to bring in other issues to keep members on the line.
I think it's going to be hard to hold people on the lines for an early retirement program that's not very popular in the community.
Smith says classroom size, teacher evaluations, and tuition reimbursement are all resolved. Teachers offered to pick up a small share of the insurance premiums as long as the board paid the first 7.5%. Smith says the union also compromised on early retirement.
We made a major concession to reduce the benefit period from the current 10 years to 7 years. That was not enough for the board. They refused to budge off of their demand to reduce it to only a 4-year period.
By 4 a.m., all bargaining was over. Murray says he'll return if the two sides think they can reach a consensus. He says the two parties are so close to settling this thing they could actually do it without his help. That remains to be seen.
Coos Bay schools reopened this week amid offensive pickets. Wednesday, just as negotiators came close to a settlement, police responded to a complaint that two striking teachers were in a hotel room, not registered to them, and were making harassing phone calls to substitute teachers who crossed the picket line. The two teachers were not jailed, but they were cited for criminal trespassing. Meanwhile, in Eugene, a settlement is still nowhere.
Eyewitness News, the 5:30 report.
Good evening. Hopes for a settlement today in the 8-day-old teacher strike in Coos Bay were dashed as scheduled talks fell through. A negotiation session has been called off for this evening, but was canceled when state mediator Daryl Murray decided the time wasn't right for productive talks. Now, both sides in the dispute say their differences at this point are minor, yet neither the teachers nor the school board is expressing a willingness to compromise further. Attendance was down today at Coos Bay schools from yesterday. About 71% of the 4,300 students attended class this morning as substitutes filled in again for striking teachers. Normal attendance is about 95%. Now, no further negotiations to resolve the strike has been scheduled at this time.
Strike. Substitutes crossing the picket lines on Wednesday were greeted with verbal attacks from striking teachers. Today, Coos Bay school officials say they want a restraining order to keep the strikers off school grounds. A district spokesperson says the pickets tried to physically block replacement teachers as they arrived for work at a couple of the schools this morning. And Superintendent Giles Parker says one Coos Bay student was assaulted this morning as a result of the strike. Parker claims a 16-year-old girl was thrown to the ground by an unidentified man who was reportedly in support of the teachers. No in the school district have been...
I'm with David Walker, and thank you for joining us tonight. Students say it's hard to take school seriously when your teachers are picketing outside. Students are frustrated, confused, scared, and in some cases, uncontrollable. Charlie Sharp's principal job these days is keeping law and order at Marshfield High School. It's not an easy job. It means getting tough with students when they don't want to go to class. And there's not a whole lot of incentive for these kids to go to class when their teachers are walking the picket line. Today, the situation was uncontrollable. Before lunch, it appeared everything was as normal as can be expected under the circumstances, and then the walkout. This rock session, held on property adjacent to the school, was sponsored by kids supporting Coos Bay teachers. There may have been 70% of the students at Marshfield High School this morning, but by lunchtime, those numbers had dwindled considerably. Only 700 kids went back to the classroom. A quick perusal after lunch revealed classrooms with only 4 and 5 students attending. District personnel brought out the video cameras to take pictures of those skipping. Sharps watched for a while, then pleaded with students individually to come back to school. Finally, the principal went before the crowd of 150 and read the ultimatum.
You are supposed to be in school. You may choose to stay if you want to. Those of you that do stay, don't come back tomorrow. I don't need you or want you.
Students continued to sing and scream until finally police told everyone to go home. Sharp says, if this keeps up, it's over. Are his bosses, the school board, and the other 60-some teachers. He understands why they're picketing. 15 years ago, he was in the same situation. But now he's looking at it from a different point of view, an administrative point of view. And he doesn't like what he sees. Yesterday, 2 teachers were cited for trespassing. Today, he was pushed out of the way while protecting substitutes. He says it's going to get worse before it gets better.
At about, I don't know, 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning, that student was grabbed from behind by a man, and that's all we know, who threatened her and said, you better tell your dad, you better tell your boyfriend's dad and other administrators, and I don't, that things had better get settled and settled quick, or we're going to start getting you.
Reportedly, the man who accosted the girl told her to warn the administration to watch themselves. Sharps compares a strike to a divorce, with students being stretched in the middle. He says, if we want this thing to settle, the mediator should be here right now, forcing the 2 sides to meet.
So this is not the best of times, and we need to do something, even if it's continue to talk, to get this to come to a head. We need to sit down, and it appears to me that we're not doing enough sitting. And maybe sitting is the only answer. You know, sometimes I think I should say, let's lock everybody up in one room and let them talk until we're through. And that doesn't happen.
Sharp says this strike has got to end soon. He wants to be a principal rather than a police officer. And students say they want their real teachers back. No mediation sessions have been scheduled at this time. However, both sides are talking to the state mediator. In the meantime, classes will continue tomorrow. Reporting for Northwest News, I'm Rick Dancer. One teacher has been arrested tonight and another one cited. The first at Millicoma Junior High School. The female apparently refused to leave the school grounds. Police charged her with criminal trespass in the 2nd degree. The other incident was a citation for carrying an offensive sign on school property.
Side or the other in the Coos Bay teachers strike. If you support the teachers or the board, we'd like to know. KCBY has decided to put together an unofficial poll, and we need your help. Until 8 o'clock tonight, you can call in and cast your ballot. If you support the board, the number to call is 1-900-720-0011. If you support teachers, call 1-900-720-0010. This is not a toll-free telephone number. You'll be charged 50 cents by AT&T for your call. We'll have the results of the informal poll. That'll be at 11 o'clock tonight and again tomorrow night here on Northwest News.
Coos Bay teachers and the school board. Through a toll-free number at a 50-cent charge by AT&T, we wanted to find out if you supported the board or the teachers. Well, the results are in. And most of those who took the time out to call are in support of the teachers. The vote count, 371 in favor of the board, 555 in favor of the teachers. That's a 184 difference. Let me remind you that this is an unofficial poll. This in no way accurately reflects the opinions of the entire community. Close to 200 parents and concerned citizens packed the Coos Bay Library auditorium tonight to hear at least one side to the controversy surrounding the teachers' strike. At a public forum designed to give the community a chance to hear for themselves both sides of the contract dispute, only union representatives showed up to state their claim. In a letter to forum organizers, the school board said they had to decline tonight's offer because they felt negotiations should be made at the bargaining table instead of at a public meeting. In the meantime, Union Representative Bruce Smith explained the three issues the union says remains unsettled. That is in grading policy, insurance benefits, and early retirement. Following Tuesday night's mediation session, the board said only one issue is still in dispute, early retirement. Smith says the union made every effort to meet the board halfway on the three issues.
Are the three major issues that remain in dispute. We feel very strongly that we have made a major concession on each of those areas, and that we are willing to accept a contract that is substantially less than the expired agreement. This board wants a contract that is even worse than that, and that's why 213 Coos Bay teachers are on strike.
The meeting lasted for about 2 hours. Parents, teachers, students, and even substitute teachers who've crossed the picket line expressed their views. One teacher has been arrested tonight and another one cited, the first at Millicoma Junior High School. The female apparently refused to leave school grounds. Police charged her with criminal trespass too. The other incident was a situation for carrying an offensive sign on school property. Thank you for joining me tonight. Sports and weather are coming up after this.
43-year-old Gary Novak was cited after allegedly carrying an offensive sign in the area between the Milner Crest Elementary School and the sidewalk. And 50-year-old Cynthia Morris was cited after she refused to leave the grounds of Millicoma Junior High School. Also, someone reportedly pushed a 16-year-old student to the ground. She said she was choked and given a message for her boyfriend's father, who was a school administrator. The district considered obtaining a restraining order to keep strikers off school grounds, but decided against it in the hopes of cooling things down. A negotiating session set for last night was canceled. No others are scheduled. And no new talks have been...
Teacher union negotiator Bruce Smith says school administrators have been arbitrarily suspending students for minor infractions such as being tardy or tapping a pencil. But school superintendent Giles Parker says some students have been taking advantage of the strike situation to misbehave. But he adds that the students are just following the childish behavior of the striking teachers. Now, there were no reports, incidents, or arrests involving picketeers this morning. Negotiations are not expected to resume until sometime next week. In other news, tonight, a Phoenix man will be going to the state...
Student comments vary. Some say the subs are better than their teachers, while most would like to see the old familiar faces back in the classroom. Classes are not operating completely as normal, but substitutes like Mike Stewart of Eugene say they're trying. He says it's tough walking through picket lines each morning while teachers tear your credibility apart, but he understands what they're going through. For many subs, the $142 the district pays to teach is better than unemployment checks or not working at all. That's not the case with subs like Stewart. He says his main concern is the kids.
What we've been doing here is we've been concentrating on the rights of teachers and the rights of district, and what a lot of people have forgotten is what the rights of the kids are. You know, at least in this state, the kids have a right to a free public education.
One favorite cry from pickets to replacement teachers as they get off the buses is, "It's not your fight, how can you take our jobs?"
What my answer to them would be, I really couldn't answer that.
You need the money, is that?
No, I don't think so. I really don't know how I'd answer it. I suppose a lot of it would depend on how I was asked the question.
Law enforcement agencies in Coos
with David Walker, we made changes on a couple of items. The two sides are very close, but talks have stalled. It's been a week filled with violence, disorganization, and pressure for the entire community.
Bay teachers had quite a send-off party for substitutes heading home for the weekend. Rain dampened spirits for a while. That is until flashing red lights of the school bus came rolling out of the high school loaded with replacements. Down at the motels, crews waited with cardboard posters which named each substitute and their address, a union technique for intimidating pickets not to bother showing up next week. Monday is when frustrations mounted when temporary teachers first crossed the picket lines. The Civil War heated up, union strike tactics prevailed. Tuesday, the school board and his teachers got back together with the mediator for what looked like the last time. 12 hours of negotiations brought the two sides to the altar, but no one would say I do. Both sides walked away closer to an agreement, but tense. When students arrived at school Wednesday morning, they saw a whole new side of their instructors. As substitutes climbed out of the buses, teachers pleaded for their jobs. Students watched, wondering. By Thursday, student curiosity was quenched. Reality had set in. Students questioned their reason for going to school if the teachers weren't. A rock concert across the street supporting teachers lured more than 100. Yesterday, it appeared that the district had lost control. Attendance dropped even lower today. Reports of 60% at the high school have spurred district officials to send letters and call parents asking why their kids aren't in school. School will open again on Monday under the same strike conditions unless a mediation session is called over the weekend. That is doubtful. More than likely, talks won't resume until Monday or Tuesday. Reporting for Northwest News, I'm Rick Dancer.
And cited over the last week, Cynthia Morris was arrested for criminal trespass too. Garrett Novak, Wayne Van Berger, and Carol Matthews were cited for criminal trespass. Today, a Marshfield High School teacher, Larry Smith, was taken to jail for disturbing his classroom. Smith said he would stay in jail until a board member serious about negotiations came to get him. Well, this afternoon, Smith says board member Everett Curry showed up and signed for his release. Bail money was put up by two of the replacement teachers. Just after 10 o'clock this morning, the mother in Bunker Hill was arrested. She was charged with initiating a false report. The school got a bomb threat saying a bomb set to go off in the afternoon at the school building. That call was traced to the home of Carolyn Lee, who will face federal prosecution.
Congressman Ron Wyden of Portland.
Teachers, school officials say attendance was 70% Wednesday, but had fallen to 65% by Friday. Coos Bay teacher negotiator Bruce Smith claims the dropping attendance rates show reopening schools with replacements had been a failure. But district officials say they expected to see a big drop in attendance because of the strong presence of unions in Coos Bay.
Schools were reopened for 3 days last week, and substitute teachers were brought in. Out of the 4,300 students, only 65 to 70% of them attended classes. Officials report that the attendance rate has improved today, and some parents are walking the halls trying to keep order at the schools. No further violence has been reported on the picket line. Negotiations have stalled, and no new meetings are planned between the district and union representatives.
An 8 count
by the mediator. Striking teachers say those issues are clear, and they say a compromise from the board is all it'll take to settle the strike. The two sides continue to disagree on just how many issues are unresolved. The teachers say 3, the district says 1. Meanwhile, classes continue. District figures show that 70% of the students are attending class, and the Coos Bay district says some parents are calling the parents of students who are absent to remind them of the state's compulsory attendance law. Well, coming up later in this news broadcast.
Tonight at 7 o'clock. Meanwhile, as Coos Bay correspondent Rick Dancer reports, students seem to be taking advantage of the strike. Today, attendance was at 70%.
Replacement teachers are back in Coos Bay for a second week, but the greeting from the pickets has changed. They're still adamant about their cause and want substitutes to get off their turf. But last week's shoving and screaming has subsided. Now the union is showing its strength in numbers. 167 paraded from school to school this morning, singing about solidarity. As buses delivered outside teaching help to Blossom Gulch Elementary School, teachers turned their backs and let the music of a trumpet say it all as it played taps. While pickets continue to walk outside, a group of volunteers is working inside to see that kids in Coos Bay continue to get their education. Marnie Hulsey says it's the kids' right. It's up to the school board and the teachers to work out the contract. In the meantime, her children are going to get an education. Volunteers are seen by many pickets as puppets of the school board.
Yes, the people on the picket line, I think, misunderstand what we're trying to do. It's unfortunate because there's no need for it. We supported them when they were in the classroom. Now we're doing it for the teachers that are in the classrooms at this time, because it's the children that bear the brunt of the walkout, and they've got to be in school.
Classes are not back to normal and probably won't be until the strike is over. However, students appear to be handling everything pretty well. Volunteers do not teach, they just help keep emotions calm while the substitutes get used to their surroundings. Parents also meet each day at 12 noon at Marshfield High School to reassure students there that they should be in class. They're trying to prevent situations like last Thursday's rock concert from occurring again. That day, more than 150 students walked out. Students are getting used to their substitute teachers. Class attendance is up while behavior problems are on the decline. Coos Bay schools are far from settling this strike. However, parents and students are making the best of the situation. Reporting from Coos Bay, I'm Rick Dancer.
Coos Bay Elementary School Principal Suzanne Marchand is in a Coos Bay hospital tonight. She was taken there yesterday suffering from severe chest pain. She did not have a heart attack, and according to the school superintendent, she has a history of heart problems. Marchand is in good condition at the hospital in Coos Bay tonight.
Teachers Union will meet at 7 o'clock tonight to discuss disputed concerns, including grading procedure and retirement policy. School Board President Rachel Hinkey says that the district will remain firm on making cuts so that the community can afford the school budget. Now, the Teacher Union President, Jim Rainey, says the teachers have already given up too much to cave in at this point. And we'll have an update on those negotiations during our 11 o'clock newscast tonight.
We're out in force on the picket lines. Reporter Rick Dancer has more on the Coos Bay strike, which is now in its 11th day.
A thick layer of fog hovered over Coos Bay teachers this morning as they once again turned out in full force to show disapproval with the school board's actions. Today it was Millicoma Junior High School, where after 12 days of striking and no end in sight, teachers' spirits have dampened. Some days pavement pounding seems futile. However, marching and singing to lift the spirits continues. Today is a day of hope in Coos Bay. Tonight, the school board and the union will meet once again and try to iron out their differences. Teachers are standing true to their cause, saying they will not back down on any more issues. Their frustrations can be heard as police escort temporary teachers to the school buildings. Later, all 200 pickets marched to Eastside Elementary School to greet substitutes crossing the lines there. Teachers marched impatiently while district personnel tried to shade students from what's going on outside. Finally, teachers arrived. Scabs! Go home, scabs! Both the school board and the teachers believe that community support is backing their position. This is seen by many as a major obstacle in negotiations. Today, both bargaining units are holding hard and fast to their positions.
Well, I think it's going to have to take movement on the part of the association to recognize the economic kinds of concerns that the district has and to attempt to accommodate those.
We are pretty much at our rock bottom line. What it takes to produce a settlement tonight is the board's willingness to compromise, to meet us halfway on those major unresolved issues.
Coos Bay teachers are closer to settling a contract than they've been in nearly 17 months of negotiations. Early retirement and insurance remain on the table. Negotiators say they're hopeful, but at the same time doubtful that a settlement can be reached this soon. Reporting for Northwest News, I'm Rick Dancer.
A replacement teacher driving to work in Coos Bay was killed this morning when his car veered into oncoming traffic. Police say 57-year-old Glenn Spear from Jacksonville was driving west on Highway 42 near Coquille. Witnesses say his car suddenly veered into the path of a chip truck. Spear had been working...
Sent to the union. I'm Brenda Louie, and thank you for joining me with this local edition of Northwest News. It looks like another mediation session is in store, marathon mediation session is in store for tonight. Negotiations between the school board and the teachers union are still going on at this hour. The session got underway at 7 o'clock at the Thunderbird Motel. It wasn't until 9:30 that any movement was made. The board has sent a proposal to the union that gave a new approach to early retirement. According to a district spokesperson, the proposal will stay within the same dollar amount, but will give the union a chance to spread the figure over a 7-year period. At the last mediation session, the board wanted to reduce the incentive program to 4 years from the current 10, which the union wanted to maintain. The union offered a compromise of 7 years at the last mediation session, but it's not known yet if they've agreed to the board's recent proposal tonight. The union still maintains that 3 issues remain on the bargaining table. Aside from early retirement, grading policies, insurance benefits are still in dispute. Board Chairperson Rachel Henke says grading policy has been resolved. Before negotiations got underway, we talked with state mediator Daryl Murray. He said he was going into tonight's session with guarded optimism.
The parties aren't too far apart, and hopefully the attitudes are not so hardened at this point that further movement's impossible. But I haven't gotten an indication from either side that they're ready to move yet, so we're just looking to see if there's a settlement there, and if there is, we'll try to get it together.
Murray was given some assistance tonight. The head of the State Conciliation and Mediation Service, John Vail, was in town. Vail is the mediator in the Eugene teacher strike.
Eugene, there are similar positions. The early retirement is one of the main ones in both areas, and the insurance issue, which is in both areas too. So there are similarities in some of the positions between here and there, and they've gone on for a long time. Hopefully we can get them settled.
Demonstration rally. More than 200 parents, teachers, concerned citizens, and students gathered in front of the Thunderbird Motel tonight to rally for a settlement between the school district and the teachers' union. Many came bundled up in warm jackets, prepared to stay all night until the mediation session comes to an end.
Tara and I are planning to stay here as long as we possibly can, and we're hoping and praying for a settlement tonight.
The rally was kept mild. A few parents and kids held up their own picket signs along the road, pleading for a settlement, but no protests were staged. Most came out as a symbolic gesture and to give the district and the union a message to work out an agreement and put an end to the 2-week-long teacher strike.
The kids, it's really affecting them, and a lot of the people, a lot of the public, I know, would like to see it settled.
And I think that the strike is doing a lot of damage, and the teachers being away like they are is doing a lot of damage to the kids.
Right now, at this point in time, I feel like it's gotten out of hand, that what we need now is to have the people get together that are in this meeting tonight and really honestly look at it in a way that they can say that they have done the best job that they've set out to do with the community in mind. The kids need this.
I'd like to tie the mediator down so he cannot leave the room until it's done. I don't like him coming into our town, getting us almost to a breaking point, and then leaving us to clean up his dust for a week. I want it over with, and I don't want him out of town until it's done.
Reporting for Northwest News, I'm Brenda Louie. A 56-year current year and a
Both sides ratify the proposals this afternoon. The strike will be over. Teachers will be back in the classrooms tomorrow. Going into last night's mediation session, hopes were high, but realistically neither the board nor the union's negotiator believed a settlement could be reached this soon. Both sides passed proposals back and forth. By 9:30, things began to turn around. The board came up with a new approach to one issue keeping both sides from settling: early retirement. Last week, the union dropped its request to take retirement 10 years early down to 7 years. The board was asking for 4 years. Under the board's new proposal, the union would get its 7 years, but the amount of money paid would be the same as the 4-year retirement plan, but it would be spread over a longer period. No one's saying at this time if this is the way the new contract will read. Details will not be released until the contract is signed later today. The head of the State Mediation Service, John Vail, took time out of his Eugene bargaining to give support in the Coos Bay District last night. Union negotiator Bruce Smith says that made the difference.
The factors, obviously, the availability of John Vail from the mediation service was a valuable asset. Also, I think there was a spirit on both sides of willingness to compromise to resolve the dispute. I think the contract will be one that both sides can be proud of, and it should work well for this school district for the next 3 years.
After more than 7 hours of bargaining, an agreement was finally reached by 2:30 this morning. By 3:30, only a handful of teachers were still celebrating at what used to be called strike headquarters. There will be no pickets guarding the schools today. Substitute teachers will pass freely from bus to classroom. Teachers will meet at 11 o'clock this morning to vote on what looks like the end of this strike. The board will meet this afternoon to do the same. If the contract is approved, regular teachers will move back into their classrooms at 3:30 this afternoon and will be waiting for students to arrive first thing tomorrow morning. Reporting for Northwest News, I'm Rick Dancer. Now that the strike appears to be over, students and teachers will be back in the classrooms together. Over the past 12 days, the kids have seen a new side of their instructors, a side that many were shocked to see. When violence erupted on the picket lines, the first realization that teachers were frustrated and had emotions. Will it be difficult for teachers to explain what happened and why? Coos Bay Education President Jim Rainey says he thinks they'll understand.
Not a bit. We've been wanting to go back to the classroom since the day we left. Students have wanted us there. I don't think that there will be any problem at all.
Is now officially a piece of history.
Eyewitness News, the 5:30 report.
Teachers will be back in class in Coos Bay tomorrow after today's agreement on a new 3-year contract. Outside, about 200 teacher supporters gathered before the final bargaining session last night. Inside, both sides went at it for 8 hours before a tentative agreement was reached. At about 2:30 this morning, both sides came to terms, each compromising on the major issues.
Hard struggle. It's been 16, 17 months in the making. It's unfortunate it took a strike to accomplish, but we're pleased.
Now, later this morning, the teachers and the school board both ratified the agreement. Today's settlement ends the 11-day strike, and this afternoon, teachers started bringing back their personal things to classrooms. Substitute teachers are now on their way home. Well, meanwhile, it's a different story.
Tonight's top stories, it's back to school for Coos Bay teachers. This morning, they agreed to end their strike, ratifying a contract agreement hammered out after an all-night bargaining session. 200 substitute teachers had kept classes going in Coos Bay, but they'll be replaced by the regular staff tomorrow. Meanwhile, in Eugene, striking teachers...
There's relief in Coos Bay today as an agreement has been reached, settling the 2-week-old teacher strike. But in Eugene...
It seems that everyone in Coos Bay is now breathing a collective sigh of relief. After 2 very long weeks, the teacher strike in Coos Bay is finally over. Doug Barber reports.
Striking teachers gathered late this morning to ratify the new contract. The vote was unanimous. Breakthroughs on insurance and early retirement brought an end to the strike.
That your bargaining team pulled off one of the best coups in bargaining I've ever seen. If you know, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, we'd already conceded to an insurance cap. Folks, there is no cap. You have full benefit.
And the teachers' existing early retirement program is left intact for 2.5 years of the 3-year contract. Clearly, the teachers are convinced they won.
I think it's a fair settlement. We ate a little bit and we got a lot. And in any kind of a situation, you're going to have some wins and losses, and we think we came out with more wins.
The school board also unanimously approved the contract at its noon meeting. But there was no celebration, simply relief.
Well, I don't think it's a victory for anyone except maybe for the community. It needed to be over, and it's over, and that's what we wanted.
Mediators are being given much of the credit for the settlement reached at 2:30 this morning.
All right.
Good job, Kelly.
With no pickets up, the high school seemed calm today. Teachers may never feel so welcome as when they return to class tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm glad the regular teachers are coming back, because these substitutes, half of them don't know what they're doing.
And Principal Charlie Sharps is looking forward to having his friends and colleagues back on the job.
It's over, and it's only beginning, if I can say that again, because, you know, we've got a healing process we need to start, but the big push, the big hurdle is done, and I'm feeling pretty good about it.
He knows there will be plenty of hard feelings, especially after replacement teachers were brought in last week to reopen schools.
We're going back tomorrow. Can we have our keys today so that we can go in and disinfect our roads?
Every strike is different. Different issues, different history, different personalities. But there may be some lessons Eugene's school board and striking teachers can learn from this experience. Most of the advice came from teachers.
I think they'll learn that if you hang tough, you can get what you want.
Get it settled as soon as you can. It's not worth it.
In Coos Bay, Doug Barber, Eyewitness News.
Teachers lent their support to Eugene's striking teachers this morning. At a general meeting, over 100 of them put their signatures on a poster that will be sent to the EEA. With the Coos Bay strike settled, Eugene remains the only district in Oregon with striking teachers. The Coos Bay Education Association also voted to send a $500 donation to the Eugene teachers for their strike fund. Well, the Coos Bay strike officially ended this morning. Negotiators hammered out a contract settlement in the wee hours of the morning. Both district and teachers ratified that agreement hours later. Kent Mortimer reports now from Coos Bay.
Your time on the strike line is now a clear victory for you and for kids in this district. Through your commitment to stand out there, not always in the sunshine, you have sent a clear message to this board. They cannot dictate, they must negotiate. I urge you to ratify this agreement because it's a damn good one.
Chief Union negotiator Bruce Smith told striking teachers the 3-year agreement doesn't give them everything they wanted, but he enthusiastically recommended approval at a meeting this morning. The teachers quickly took his advice, and a stand-up vote officials called unanimous ratification of the agreement. The vote ends the 2-week strike by 213 teachers here. Everyone seemed thrilled that the dispute is now over. Oregon Education Association President Sandy Ellis started out what turned into an hour-long celebration at teacher strike headquarters.
You did it. It was because of you and your solidarity and your unity that you were able to reach settlement. I think we should give you a big hand right now.
The negotiators broke the impasse at about 2:30 this morning when the teachers agreed to a change in eligibility for early retirement. That had been the key sticking point in this dispute. In exchange, Smith says the district agreed to drop a cap on insurance benefits. Salaries were never an issue. The 3-year pact freezes base salaries for the first year and grants small increases the second and third years. In a special noon meeting, the school board also ratified the agreement.
Further discussion? I hope not. All those in favor? Opposed?
Superintendent Giles Parker said the settlement represents a victory not for the district or the teachers, but for the community, which he said has suffered during the strike.
Obviously, it's not a pleasant thing to go through. Sometimes you have to go through them. It's over. We need to mend the fences and have reconciliation, and we're already starting to do that.
The schools here have been open since last Wednesday with substitutes in the classrooms. Tomorrow, the regular teachers will be back. Everyone involved says that they just hope things can get back to normal as soon as possible. In Coos Bay, Kemp Mortimer, Northwest News.
Major cuts are announced at Lane Community.
Negotiator Bruce Smith was developing the package that shut down the picket lines. Last night, offers were passed back and forth. Finally, about 9:30, the breaking point came. The board made an offer on early retirement, which broke the ice, and finally settled the strike. Before last night's mediation session got underway, several concerned citizens turned out in front of the Thunderbird Motel for a mild demonstration.
More than 200 parents, teachers, concerned citizens, and students gathered in front of the Thunderbird Motel tonight to rally for a settlement between the school district and the teachers' union. Many came bundled up in warm jackets, prepared to stay all night until the mediation session comes to an end.
Tara and I are planning to stay here as long as we possibly can, and we're hoping and praying for a settlement tonight.
The rally was kept mild. A few parents and kids held up their own picket signs along the road, pleading for a settlement, but no protests were staged. Most came out as a symbolic gesture and to give the district and the union a message to work out an agreement and put an end to the 2-week-long teacher strike.
The kids, it's really affecting them, and a lot of the people, a lot of the public, I know, would like to see it settled.
And I think that the strike is doing a lot of damage, and the teachers being away like they are is doing a lot of damage to the kids.
Right now, at this point in time, I feel like it's gotten out of hand, that what we need now is to have...
Good evening, I'm Rick Dancer, along with David Walker, and thanks for joining us tonight. The big news tonight, Coos Bay's 12-day-old teachers strike is over. It was like the 4th of July at Union headquarters as teachers, all 213, gathered to share in what they're calling a victory celebration. After more than 17 months of negotiations and 2 weeks of walking the picket lines without pay, settlement is a word some thought they'd never hear.
I have very mixed emotions. I'm hoping and praying that it's over. I still am very angry that it even had to occur, and I don't know if we can ever overcome the hurt, but I just pray to God that it's over.
I was really sad this morning. I cried because the tension was so great, and I'm just really glad to be back with my kids.
Teachers hugged and greeted one another with smiles that haven't filled these faces for weeks. Oregon Education Association President Sandy Ellis told the group unity and solidarity got them where they are today. She also put in a plug for Eugene teachers who are grappling with a strike that seems to have no end. Coos Bay teachers sent a check for $500 to help Eugene's effort and signed a poster of support. Then union negotiator Bruce Smith explained the issues of their contract as teachers cheered after each success.
There is no cap. You have full benefits.
Finally, the question was called for.
The recommendation of the bargaining team. All those in favor, please stand up.
Across town, the board held a press conference of its own to ratify the agreement. The mood here was somber. The meeting was called to order, a motion made and seconded. Then they accepted the contract, and it was over. Superintendent Giles Parker would not claim victory.
The board got some of the things that they wanted, and the association got some of the things that they wanted. I think it would be counterproductive now to talk about victories and defeats. We all wanted some kind of a settlement. We got a settlement. We were obviously both satisfied with it, or it wouldn't have been ratified, so I think we need to just go from there.
Now comes the tough part of the strike, picking up the pieces and getting back to education. There are a lot of hard feelings in the community and the district. The board and teachers have agreed it's up to them to start mending fences. Reporting for Northwest News, I'm Rick Dancer.
The contract settlement involves 29 articles. The most controversial will be implemented as follows. Student grading and appeals committee of 3 people will be established. Sitting on that committee would be 1 teacher, an administrator, and other certified district employees. Class size, current language will be maintained except in financial emergencies. If the district can't pass its operating levy or is in danger of closing, the article can be amended. There will be no insurance cap. No salary increase the first year, with a 2% hike the second, and a cost of living raise the third year. That will not be less than 2% or more than 4.5%. Early retirement will continue to be a 10-year program until January of 1989, at which time changes will be implemented. Early retirement will be given from 58 to age 65. There also is an amnesty clause contained in the contract. Both sides have agreed to drop all unfair labor and illegal action lawsuits filed during the strike. There will be no makeup days for the teachers. They'll end up losing funds for the strike. Teachers are in the classrooms, many of them at this time. Tomorrow will be the first day teachers will be allowed with their students back in the classrooms.
Over tonight, only 1 to go. In Eugene, they're still negotiating, but in Coos Bay, a settlement's been reached and teachers will return to their classrooms tomorrow. Reporter Pat Duggan was there as the new contract was being ratified.
If we're going back tomorrow, can we have our keys today so that we can go in and disinfect our roads?
But that was the only note of dissension. Otherwise, the mood at teacher strike headquarters this morning was one of celebration.
I sent a clear message to this board. They cannot dictate, they must negotiate. And they've got to treat you with the respect that you deserve and to treat you like professionals, or this battle will not be over. I urge you to ratify this agreement because it's a damn good one.
Salary had not been at issue here. Instead, it was insurance and early retirement. Teachers won the insurance battle. The district will pay their full premiums. The district won out for early retirement. Beginning in 1989, the minimum age is being raised from 55 to 58.
This morning, all that was left to do was vote on it.
All those in favor, please stand up.
A little later, over at the district headquarters where the school board was meeting, the mood was much more subdued.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
School officials now have another worry on their minds, passing a 3-year levy that comes up May 19th. But for the moment, their concern is how to recover from the strike.
Obviously, it's not a pleasant thing to go through. Sometimes you have to go through them. It's over. We need to mend the fences and have reconciliation, and we're already starting to do that.
But as far as the students are concerned, that may take some doing.
This whole issue has really polarized the community, and it's brought forth a lot of hard feelings, and we're just really glad to have it over.
We have kind of some resentment against the teachers because we're always told that, you know, we're supposed to be mature and act like adults, and from our point of view, it's going to be really hard coming into the classroom tomorrow and having to face some of the teachers, but I think we're all glad it's over.
So tomorrow morning, it's back to normal for Coos Bay schools, or as normal as can be expected, the first day after the strike. In Coos Bay, Pat Duggan, the 10 o'clock news.
In Eugene, parents have filed suit in court
demanding to their classrooms today. Yesterday, they ratified an agreement that called for concessions on early retirement, but improvements in health benefits. Students had been attending classes taught by some 200 substitutes, but most said they were glad that things were starting to get back to normal.
Happy day in Coos Bay as teachers return to the classrooms. Rick Dancer tells us what school was like for the teachers and the students.
Things are beginning to look like usual back in the Coos Bay School District. Today, students returned for their first day of normal circumstances after 12 days of striking by district teachers. Teachers were glad to see students and feel the security of their classrooms rather than the pains of the picket line. Students were happy to see friends and the teachers. Now the district can get back to the business of education. Familiar faces crowded the halls of Marshfield High School as regular teachers returned to the classroom for the first time in 12 days. For the last few weeks, substitutes have been teaching. Students are happy to have their stable atmosphere returned.
Seems to be a lot more people here today. Everybody seems to be happy and enjoying it. Finally get to talk to our teachers because I never got to talk to any. A lot of students are back and everybody's pretty happy about it. The teachers are happy, the students are happy. It's pretty festive.
It won't be easy for teachers to explain the emotions and the violence that took place on the picket lines. Students have plenty of questions that will have to be answered.
Again, there's no right or wrong here. We got to sort this out the best we can. We're going to go on and finish the year out. I had my motives and reasons, and you had your motives and reasons for how you think, and I think we ought to deal with that in an honest and as open form as we can.
At the grade schools, the kids were just eager to see their teachers for the first time. Many brought apples or flowers. Almost everyone had a hug. Third grade teacher Lynn West says watching her students cross the picket lines during the strike is the scariest situation she's ever been in.
It's real sad. I was on the outside looking in, looking at my kids go by and waving, and it was helpless. It was a real helpless feeling and not knowing what to do. Scary.
These students may be young, but it's still hard for them to understand why adults can't get along and why they have to go on strike.
What was the strike about?
We did something that we felt we had to fight for what we believed in. And maybe some moms and dads thought we were wrong, some supported us. That's okay. It's over with now, and hopefully we'll never have to do that again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to...
Reporting for Northwest News, I'm Rick Dancer.
For the remainder of the school year, teachers, students, and the administration will be walking a bit of a tightrope. A strike, of course, a very emotional thing, and it will take time for deep feelings to heal. Board member Everett Curry says reconciliation is the key to getting the district and the education of its children back online. Both sides came out winners. The teachers added and held on to language they needed, while the board received rollbacks in areas it felt the community needed.
I've used right along. The board wanted a just and fair settlement, just and fair to the community member who's paying the taxes, paying the bill, just and fair to us in leadership role, just and fair to the teacher who is, after all, an employee and should be treated with respect and with their integrity should not be should not be at issue. And I believe we can come back again to that.
Curry says he's more worried about the effect the strike will have on adults than children. Kids are resilient and will bounce back. He says this may be a good lesson for all.
But it's all bad that the kids have seen the other side of our human relationship enterprise, because that's the real world. People don't always agree with each other. They don't always act professionally. They don't always find common ground easily. And most of the older kids, the high school kids, I think have had an exercise in human relationships. And I know many of them have talked about the fact that it takes everybody involved in a relationship to make that relationship a viable one.
One of the issues settled yesterday that still has many people confused is that of early retirement. That issue was a compromise position from both sides. The current 10-year plan that allows teachers to retire at 55 will remain in effect. That will be through January of 1989. At that time, a new plan will be implemented. Early retirement will be reduced to a 4-year plan. Teachers will have the option to choose a smaller monthly payment and spread those same benefits out over a 7-year period. District Superintendent Giles Parker says this will save the district $44,000